Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Scripting Them podcast. In today's episode, I want to tackle the fact that many developers are just not using AI on their workflow simply because they don't know what they can do with it. They just think about it as Copilot and they don't really want AI messing with the way they write code. They don't see the benefit and they just disregard the whole thing. In this episode, I want to show you that there are way too many ways in which you can use and benefit from using AI in your workflow, and that you should actually be using it. So I'm also going to be giving you some recommendations of products or ways in which you can do it. So check it out and let's see if it helps. All right, as you know, AI has been growing in hype over the last couple of years, actually, especially since OpenAI went public and released ChatGPT and so on. But everyone's talking about AI. Everyone's talking especially about generative AI, LLMs, and the ability to do Midjourney, things like that, the ability to create images with it, and everything around that. For developers, there's always been the question of, is this the end of developers? Are we seeing how we're going to be replaced by the machine in the near future? Everyone's talking about it. One of the first episodes of this podcast actually answered that question. Spoiler alert, no, we won't. But ever since then, I actually been using AI every day, essentially, for my day-to-day work and for everything I do. And I've also had conversations around AI and around whether you should or shouldn't be using AI for your dev work or in your day-to-day as a developer with other people as well. In fact, the last episode prior to this one is a very interesting conversation with Dave Thomas, who's the co-author of The Pragmatic Programmer, on the effect on AI on our industry and whether we should, as developers, be using AI. Now, long story short, the answer is yes, we should be using it. But why, if you need that question to be answered, is as developers, one of the things that we do most of the time and that adds the least amount of value, coming from us, is writing code, right? Obviously, that a lot of people associate the profession of software development with writing code, but that's not it. We're actually problem solvers, if you will. We think about solutions. We come up with innovative ways to even take technology, push technology to the edge, or foster the creation of new hardware, for example, or the need for different processing technique. The way, for example, that big data processing came along, or data processing in parallel came along. It wasn't just because the industry wanted to. We had so much information that we needed to process that the usual techniques weren't sufficient. So some companies, especially one of the first ones was Google, they simply decided to come up with new ways to interconnect computers, new ways to create networks of processors to push that boundaries that we had at the moment and be able to process information and store a lot more information in a more cost-efficient manner, for example, and much faster for processing and so on. So why I'm saying this? Again, as developers, we see a lot of our job as writing code, but that's just one part of it. The most value added by us is the ideas, is the algorithms, is the problem resolution, or is the bug fixing in moments of stress in production and so on. So, but the problem is, up until recently, there hasn't really been a way for us to properly automate the writing of the code, right? We usually have our own style, our own fingerprints are left in the code that we write because we have our own way of writing it. Even though many developers might be solving the same problem through the same algorithm, writing in the same programming language, using the same libraries and so on, each one will still have their own way of doing it. Now, thanks to AI now, especially LLMs, the writing aspect of our profession, can potentially also be automated. Is it ready and 100% production ready to be automated, and we just raise our hands and from the keyboard and forget about it? No, obviously it's not there yet. But we shouldn't be scared about the fact that it can be coming. That might be a potential future in the next few years. The question is, will we lose our value as developers because now a machine can write the code? And the answer is no, because of all the things of everything else that we do, we'll actually have more time to do all those things and have to worry about one less problem, which is writing code. So essentially, what I'm trying to say here through a long speech is AI is able to make us more efficient, more proficient. And not because it's going to solve the problems for us, but rather because we know how to solve a problem and we can just tell it to write a code for that solution. That's one of the many ways in which AI can help us as developers. And that's one of the many reasons why we shouldn't shy away from it. In fact, we should embrace it, and we should know and understand how to use it properly, understand its limitations, to get the most out of it. But writing code is not the only way in which we can use AI. So that's why I'm having this episode, because I've noticed, speaking with many colleagues and many of you online, that not everyone's aware of so many ways in which AI can help us as developers. So let's start. Let's look at the first one. And yes, the first one is the one that everyone knows about, which is coding assistance. And I think there are two ways in which you can do this. One of them is just including a coding assistant into your IDE. There are way too many to mention here. I'll just mention two. Copilot and Codium are the ones that I personally used in the past. They're both great, to be honest. Right now, I'm having a little bit more fun and better results actually with Codium. Codium is an alternative to Copilot that is free for individual users and that allows you to do everything, from code suggestions to code completion to chat, which is actually a better chat in my opinion because it's context aware. So you can actually name and mention files and functions and components from your code, and it will actually read it and be aware of what you're talking about. Copilot is also fantastic. It's not free, although many companies are already including that as a tool for developers. So if you're working for one of those companies, or if you have all the benefits, like for example, if you're a Microsoft MVP, you have Copilot for free as well as a benefit. So there are many ways in which you can access it and use it for free if you want to pay. Now, the question is, which one's better? It's up for debate. You have to check it out and use them for yourself and see which one clicks with you. But they're definitely good for you when you know what you want to do and you just don't want to spend a lot of time writing that code, right? You can just write a comment and just let it go off, and then you just adjust whatever you want to do. Or in fact, another great way I like to use this coding assistance is to refactor a piece of code. Maybe I'm just copy pasting from one project to the other, but I know that I have to rename variables and change meanings of how of different components or how they are used. I just click on the function, click refactor, and explain what I want to do, which is a more holistic way of refactoring. Essentially, it is how a human will manually refactor a function or a set of code instead of just hitting find and replace, for example. So it is able to do a much better job at refactoring that automatic tools. So that's one also aspect. I think it's a great time saver when it comes to using coding assistance. By the way, I'm going to leave links to all the tools I mentioned in the show notes. So if you want to check them out, if you haven't really heard about them, you can go find them there. Now, again, coding assistants are fantastic for writing the code that you just don't want to. another great way in which coding assistants can help you is when you have a lot of to do a lot of repeated work. For example, setting up your constants files. If you have a big set of variables that you have to define, for example, with or you, for example, you're replacing magic strings essentially from taking them out and into constants or into environment variables, whatever. Essentially repetitive code that is just one line after the other, just naming variables and so on. Once you do 2-3 of them, the LLMs will pick up on the pattern and they will help you, write out just with 2 clicks. So it's a much faster experience. All of this to say, the LLM is not solving the problem for you. It's just helping you solve it much faster because it's writing the code for you or helping you write the code. Really, it's just less keystrokes in a lot less time as well. So again, more proficiency without you having to turn off your brain. You will still have to think about how to solve the problem and the best solution, the most optimal path, and so on. That's all up to you still, and I don't think it's gonna be going away anytime soon. But at least now you can do it much faster. Now, another way in which you can use AI, specifically LLMs, in your coding is to review it. Code review is a crucial part of the software development lifecycle, and it should be part of any large team code base, and it should be part of any large product, complex products as well. Many problems that you as a developer couldn't pick up on your own code will be picked up by other developers looking at it from outside. That's always been the case. The thing is, that process takes a little bit of time. Usually you need 1, 2, maybe more reviewers. If you do it asynchronously, then you do pull requests and they review the pull requests and so on. It might take a few days for a PR to be approved. Now, if you can do that through AI, at least get the biggest problems out of the way so that by the time a human gets to the process of code review, they can just review and find the most nuanced issues that AI couldn't pick up. That's going to save a lot of time. In fact, there are problems that many of us as developers are not proficient in finding, like security issues. And if you don't have a specific expert in your team looking for them, you might miss them. Tools like Snyk, for example, or Codacy, those are tools that are going to review your code, give you pointers or suggestions for improvement, but not only on style or potential bugs or unused features, also on security aspects of your code, security vulnerabilities that you're just pushing to production that you didn't pick up on. And these tools are using specifically trained models on security to enhance that experience. So again, these are virtual experts, if you will, that could bring a lot of value into the process, but also giving you feedback and even suggesting potential solutions in minutes instead of having to wait days, and even more if you have like 1 or 2 experts in your entire team. So look into them. There is no reason why you shouldn't be using these tools as long as you also keep humans in the loop. Like any of these tools, complete automation is never recommended. Humans should still be part of the whole process, but at least you have a process that is much shorter and gives you expert advice at the same time. So check them out. Snyk, Codacy are 2 of them. There are way too many online if you just search for AI code review. And of course, you can just also use LLMs. They're not going to be expertly trained on this, but Claude is famously probably the biggest and most reliable LLM on the market that is great for coding and understanding and writing code, much better than OpenAI's ChatGPT models. So definitely, if you're not dealing with proprietary code, or if you can just run your own LLMs locally, which could also be a potential solution, you can just send the code to the LLM, and have it review it, give you pointers, give you solutions, give you improvements, and also ask it to check for security vulnerabilities. Clearly, I don't think these tools will be as proficient as specifically designed or trained models like Sneaks, for example, which is famously one of the best tools out there for vulnerability, for searching for vulnerabilities in your code. So it's a compromise. If you already have, or if you're already paying for these tools, or if you have a setup locally, and you want to take advantage of them even more, this could be a way. If you want to take it even one step further, pay for a solution that's been specifically trained for this. Those are also viable options. But at least I would recommend, if you can, set up a local environment, get one of the most common open source LLMs out there, and just or even give it the context of your source code, and then using RAG, for example, and then ask it to review it, to find repeated code, to find potential like coding styles that do not match. Those are all problems that are usually picked up during code reviews that you can remove, or figure out or find out much faster, in seconds actually, through an LLM. So that's also a great way to use AI in your coding lifecycle. All right, so the next two areas or tasks where you can definitely take advantage of AI, I like to call BBT, or big boring tasks, essentially. So documentation is one of them. Writing documentation is definitely something that is boring, that let me just rephrase that. Not necessarily boring. It's just that many developers consider it boring, because you're not actually writing code, you're not actually moving the application along, or whatever you're working on, you're just writing documentation for others. Good documentation is crucial for any project, whether you're working on an internal project for a company and you're onboarding people every once in a while. The documentation is going to help speed up that process, which is critical for them to get up to speed quickly and start producing or adding value to their project. And if you're working on something that is going to be used by other developers, say a library, a framework, then a good documentation can greatly impact the rate of adoption of your tool, essentially. And bad documentation can break that and make it so that every developer is going to hate your tool or just ignore it completely. So documentation is critical and crucial for all projects, also for projects, really. Whether we like it or not, whether we think whether we as developers see the value, that's a whole different thing. Now, there are many ways to write documentation. You could just sit and explain it on your words and write it yourself. You can just use documentation generation tools from that read your source code and capture the comments, and produce a nicer version of the source code, essentially, that is meant for people to read it. Now, either those solutions are not ideal. If you're working on a large code base, then writing it yourself and going through the whole process and making sure that the architecture information is correct, that everything's covered, that all aspects of it have the right level of detail, it takes a lot of time, and usually a lot of people. And if you're not a technical writer, you tend to hate that process. On the other side, tools like Doxygen, for example, which are very common, very used tools that will perform a lot of processing of your source code to capture and produce as much documentation as possible in an automatic way, are good only if the code is properly commented, if it's, especially if it has like strong typing, things like that, so that it can infer a lot of information. However, if you're working on something that is like JavaScript, that you can do a lot of coding there without any type of typing system, or you can just, a lot of people tend to not comment their code properly. So tools like Docusign and so on, they will not necessarily create great documentation. And the type of documentation that will be created through those processes tend to be the type of documentation that you look at once as a developer and hate automatically and just move on to the next solution. So AI here falls in the middle, which is the sweet spot, let's put it that way, for writing documentation. You can use tools that will go through your source code, explain it, and make the connections like a human person would go through that. And at the same time, it does it automatically like Docusign or any other of those tools would. So it uses essentially the best of both worlds, and it gives you really useful and insightful information. And if you have to expand on it, you can keep telling expand on it, add more information here. Just make sure to cover this specific class in regards to this other one, and all you have to do is just correct it or direct it, and it will create the whole thing for you. This is going back to the start of the episode when I was talking about how developers, we don't just write code, we do a lot more things. Writing code is just the least value added to activity that we do. This is the same thing. Actually writing the documentation in your, if you are a technical writer or if you're just a set of developers trying to create it, actually writing it is the least impactful part that you can do. Thinking about how you're going to present that information, thinking about which are the key aspects that you want to cover, the information architecture, thinking about how you want to present this information, that's where the actual value is. Then producing the actual content can be just relate to something like AI to do it. So again, while there are implications here of security implications, a privacy, if you have proprietary code, if you're working on proprietary code, there, you can't really just ask ChatGPT to do it because they will be using that information and you will have issues there. I do have an episode which I'll link in the show notes, talking about all considerations that you have to do, talking about all considerations that you have to have when dealing with AI in the dev workflow. And this is one of those cases, but there are many ways in which you can actually use LLMs to read your code and work with it. So definitely look into it. If the privacy aspect is not a problem, if you're working, for example, on an open source project, then definitely looking into cloud, like with Sonnet, looking into ChatGPT or OpenAI's models, especially the O1s one, which are pretty good at writing code snippet and understanding code. Look into them, look into using them, and just upload all the information. Each solution has their own way, but they will be able to receive the whole code base, for example, and you just ask it to document it or create a documentation site or something like that. Definitely something that will take a lot of hours off of your work, and it will allow you to do more meaningful things. So look into it. A BBT, such as writing documentation, can become actually a very short task and a very enjoyable one as well. Finally, the last of options here, and I'm sure you can think of other ways in which you can use AI on your dev day-to-day. These are just 4 options I'm giving you here. It's writing unit tests and dealing with testing in general. Writing unit tests is, again, something that many developers hate. Many companies, even many teams, just give that task to the junior developer, to the new developers joining the team, so they can get to know the code base. And there are many excuses for that, but essentially it's because no one wants to do it. The thing here is that unit tests are like that safety net that your project has, so that that if you're changing something, if you're breaking something else, without noticing, then the safety net, those unit tests will let you know. If you're refactoring code, if you're making a big update, those are all great scenarios where you know that the test will make sure that you haven't really broken anything. So again, just like documentation, unit tests are crucial for any big project, any big code base that you have, or even old code base that you want to make sure new people don't really break or make mistakes affecting all features. So again, crucial task that we tend to ignore. Why would we ignore it if we can just have AI generated for us? We can tweak whatever results we get, but definitely using LLMs that understand your code to create the unit test is a no-brainer here. You can create fantastic unit tests and then go through them, make sure they make sense. Obviously, depending on the solution you're using. If you're using something like ChatGPT, then the results might vary. If you're using something like Claude, the results might be better. If you're using something more commercial, more specific for that, like mobile, they do everything, not just unit tests, but they do a lot of visual tests as well. It's around the whole. They use AI in conjunction with a lot of other technologies to help you make sure that your unit tests stay updated. If you change the code, haven't changed the unit test, they will suggest fixes or improvements to them. They will also use visual AI to understand how you're testing it, how how you're testing your UI, and if your visual tests are correct. If you're not, they will ask for more context. There's a lot of interesting uses of different type of models, different technologies around AI to help you with the testing tasks. Whether you want to just stay on the code level and say, I'll just use an LLM to generate my unit test, or if you want to go all the way and use AI to help in around the whole QA process, there are options here, right? And as developers, at least the LLM, the unit testing is definitely another time saver that we can just take advantage of. Again, these are just examples, right? The episode ends here. I just wanted to bring you some ideas of what you can do with AI in general for your dev workflow, and also give you some names of options out there. The episode is not sponsored or anything. It's just me giving you tools that I research myself and some of them that I use myself on my day-to-day, so that you also get ideas on examples, practical examples of how AI can be used if you're not already using them in those areas. These are all tools, and the key here, right? The final thought, the final concept here that I want to cover is that all these tools are here to enhance your ability as a developer to be a better one, to be a better developer, whether it is someone who writes code faster, whether it's someone who covers all aspects of the development, including unit testing, including documentation, whether you become a better technical writer because you're using AI, but whether you ensure that the quality of your code is better because you go through some AI scans, however you use it, the result is, in the end, it's the same. You are a better developer. None of these tools are here to replace you as a developer. None of these tools can actually. So again, as developers, and really, I urge you to watch, if you haven't, or listen to the previous episode of the podcast where we talk about this in more detail. But as developers, writing code is the least value add activity that you perform in your day-to-day. There are way too many tasks, way too many things that you do that add more value. It's just that all that value ends up translated into code. So we tend to think of, I should write more code, I should produce more lines of code. But in the end, we need to start measuring the performance of a developer in other terms, using other metrics, not just the lines of code that we produce, because now that's no longer going to be a problem. As these tools evolve, we might end up not having to write that much code. We will have to still provide ideas. We will have to still provide the problem solving here and the originality in the problem solving. But the actual code, we might just give a few instructions and then review it ourselves. And that's it. That's the episode. Hope you found it interesting. I will link to all these tools in the show notes if you want to check them out. And if you do, if you're already using AI for any other activity that I haven't really mentioned it, leave a comment down below, or just reach out on Twitter. It's at DeleteMat123. Whatever, however you can, just reach out. I would love to know how developers are using AI around and what kind of results they're getting from it. All right, so that's it. That's the episode. Thank you again for watching or listening, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye. And that was it for this episode of the Scripting Them podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Remember that you can find me online on Twitter at DeleteMat123, and you can also find the podcast YouTube channel just searching for the Scripting Them on YouTube. Thank you again, and I'll catch you on the next one.